Hi folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. I don't know if you've ever heard of CWD. And what is that? That's chronic wasting disease. And I'll tell you something. It's something it affects animals with hooves. It affects deer and moose and elk. And it first came to our country, or we became aware of it, I think it started in Colorado, and then it spread to Montana and Wyoming. And now it's in over 30 states, and yes, it is in our area. And what does it mean? Is it a threat to you? No. But what brought this to me is, first of all, I had people coming up to our booth in New Hampshire talking about, and Massachusetts, talking about the impact of the chronic wasting disease is having on the deer population. So what is it? And for me to try to explain it to you is difficult because I'm not a biologist, but what it involves is what's called a prion, which is a altered folded protein. In other words, protein is folded in a certain way. And that's what we use in our body. But if it becomes altered, if it becomes misfolded, that type of protein attacks the brain. And eventually, and remember, the brain controls everything. The brain controls what we eat, how we walk, everything about us, even how our organs function. And it's the same thing with these deer. So as they get more of these folded proteins that attack the brain, they start to waste away. They start losing all kinds of weight and eventually kills them. And so it's important that we know about these things because they're part of our environment around us. Does eating deer that have chronic wasted disease, would that make you sick? Would that make you catch that disease? According to all the doctors and biologists that have studied this, they say, we don't think so. We haven't really seen that, but it is an ultimate possible risk. But what brought all this to mind is lately, especially as we just returned from our last sports show, and the snow had been melting, and we're looking out in fields, and this is in the late afternoon, and I'm seeing groups of deer, and I don't mean little groups. I'm talking about all kinds of deer out there together, maybe 50, 60, 100 in different places, and this is in our area. And it's a phenomenon that takes place this time of the year. But what does it represent? It represents two questions to me. I don't know how they all know to be out there at the same time. There's got to be some kind of communication. Do they somehow tell other herds? Because deer don't exist in herd that big. But they're all together like a carnival out there feeding. And I've seen this now for several years, but markedly last week. And I'm thinking, maybe they smell each other. Maybe because animals have such a greater sense of smell. And don't laugh at me right now because, first of all, I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know what brings them all together, but something does. And remember, they have such a great sense of smell that maybe they smell another herd out there and they come to find out what's going on. But eventually they all know. And so eventually every night they return to the same grand experience of having all this food all of a sudden available. But this poses another threat, and this is going back to the CWD that I led this report with. When deer come closer together, they can catch this disease for whatever it is, these folded proteins. They can catch this from the saliva or whatever of the other deer that they're close by. That's why biologists warn people in the winter, don't be feeding deer. You're actually hurting the population in so many ways. Well, this is another way. But it just made me think of seeing, it was exciting. It's amazing to see all these deer together. And I've never known the reason, but maybe they do smell each other. I don't know. Maybe one of you out there knows how they communicate like this, but they don't just happen to all get there on the same day. They know what's going on, and somehow they hear it from other deer or smell it or whatever. It's a thought, and it's a thought that rains on me of why in a lake that's 10 miles long, every single fish goes on a feeding frenzy at the same time. How did they know this is the time? It's that wonderful world that exists around us that we have so few answers for. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.